What's your biggest tips on auction? If someone's obviously doing it themselves, what do you think people should be aware about? Things to do, things not to do?
I'll give you some really basic principles leading into an auction, and then some really practical stuff that maybe people don't talk about, also bidding at an auction. Let's start with the bidding before the auction. Find a place that you feel comfortable standing. You buy an auction two ways: having more money, and anyone can do that, or appearing to have more money. So like you would have clients that would say like, hey, we're going to bid this weekend. The property, you'd know they're pre-approved up to, let's call it $1 million, but we're going to bid up to 900. Are you comfortable to do that? And it's like, they have more money, right? They do have more, but they choose to not pay more. And the better example is that every private sale you go to, not everyone just offers their budget. It's not how it works. So people are prepared to go to auctions with budgets and not go over it. So you have to understand you can win an auction while someone has more money, but you appear to have more money, that you shake their confidence and they don't continue to bid, or
welcome again to the Brokers Lounge, and this time around I'm joined by Dion Marsden from Marsden Buyers Agency, and it's a pleasure to have you, Dion. Thanks for joining us, mate. And if you want to do a quick intro about who you are, what you do, what you specialize in, and we'll take it from there.
plug my services.
Yes, absolutely.
As Eddie said, my name's Dion. I run a buyer advocacy group in the eastern suburbs. That's where we specialise, mainly doing owner-occupiers. Just tends to be the market in the eastern suburbs, especially with everything at the moment. I'm sure we'll speak a little bit about that as well, maybe at some point later in the podcast, but mainly owner-occupiers. In the eastern suburbs, the corridor, it's where I grew up. It's where I started in real estate. I used to be an estate agent. So that's where my skill set was, and then just transitioned into the other side when I thought maybe, I could help buyers a bit more, and then sort of fell in love with it. And then that's sort of transitioned into now running, our business and really specializing in the East and helping buyers.
Great. Yeah, look, we got connected over a mutual client, and we were having those initial chats in the beginning over the phone, and I saw what you've done, and you did a great result with our client. And then from there, we became a bit closer, and you've got a bit of a social media following going on. And
someone out there interested me on TikTok.
Oh, you do really well. Yeah. So let's jump to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and I was thinking about this last night, I think we should call it like before budget and after budget. So how's life been, AB?
I like that. AB, it's been interesting. I think it's a confidence thing. As I said before, like we do own occupiers. So I speak to a lot of other buyer agents that do a lot of investments, and that market overnight has dried up a lot. There's different ways to do it, but I think everyone at the moment is just waiting to see what it will look like.
Yes.
So at the moment, that's really pulled back, but it's a great opportunity at the moment for a lot of owner occupiers. But it's so funny because naturally as buyers, especially when it's an emotional purchase like an owner occupier, it's driven by confidence.
Yeah.
And so when you pull out half your market overnight, even though you can tell a buyer this is a great time to be buying, like everything tells them it's a great time to be buying, the confidence at the moment of the consumer is, maybe we hold back too. So after budget, our inquiries significantly dropped off, which is pretty normal as people wait to see what happens. It has started to ramp back up, especially this last week. I think now we're just sort of, that's
the new reality.
It's more. But I've seen some clients buy some really good stuff. Like we're negotiating on one at the moment that I genuinely hand on heart think 9 months ago, it would have been worth 1.15. And they've got a single ask of $990 on it at the moment. Like there's just opportunity out there.
Yep.
That the depth of buyers are not there. And so properties are falling through the cracks, and you can pick up some things for some really good prices if you have the risk appetite to buy now. And if you're an owner occupier, you buy when the time is right for you, not what the market is telling you should and shouldn't do. So it is if you're in the market, you're looking to buy, like this is the time to go if you're comfortable.
Absolutely, man. And that's what we say time and time again. Like it's the best time to be in the market is yesterday, and the second best time is today, right? So if you're always trying to time when everything's matching and perfect time to get into the market, that's where things are expensive because there's so much demand on it. And now's the actual time to buy something, especially owner-occupied, because that is not included in the CGT changes or the negative gearing changes. So if that was your plan, then now's actually a good time if you can afford it, right?
Especially if we see a shift from people putting more money into an investment property and then transitioning that into a principal place of residence. We see a shift. There'll be real demand in these owner-occupier driven markets.
Yeah.
So as you said, they're one of the unaffected assets of the changes. So it'll be interesting to see over the next 12, 18 months what changes.
Yep.
It's hard to know at the moment because not everything's absolutely set in stone.
Yeah.
But yeah, owner-occupier purchases at the moment, I think will be some of the biggest winners over the next 12 months. And we were even having a chat with a client the other day and they said, oh, should we buy now? Should we wait? Like, what should we do? And we were sort of chatting and they came to the realization that it's better to buy too early than too late.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this a lot to clients that no one's ringing a bell when it's the bottom of the market.
Yep.
No one can tell you when it's the exact bottom of the market.
Exactly.
But if you can get within 5% of that and you can buy something that you like,
You're winning.
You're winning.
Yeah.
You will do well long term.
100%. And it seems that we are at the bottom of the market right now, right? Like,
it could get worse.
But I hope not.
Not too.
I don't know what's worse, but yeah, it's been actually really tight for the last few weeks. So we've had few rate rises this year. We've had the war overseas, which affected fuel prices and everything else after that. And then we've had the new budget changes. So it just seems like it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So I don't know what's next, right? It could get worse, but
it could. What we see though is the market stabilizes. So when buyers' confidence are diminished, we see that also on the vendor side.
yes.
And so at the moment, you have the leftover stock, which was always going to come to market. And so for a couple of weeks, it felt like there weren't any buyers on anything because the buyer pool was so small.
Yeah.
Because they can pivot quick.
True.
But vendors can't. If they're in the middle of a campaign or have already launched to go or have already committed to a purchase,
Then they're going to pull back, yeah.
But we'll see a correction now. And this is where a lot of buyers will go, oh, is the market going to fall out further? No one can answer that question. But what we can answer is the fact that stock will tighten and that naturally corrects because the buyer pool is less and then the purchasing or properties that are available are also less.
Yeah.
And so therefore confidence will increase slightly because there's more competition again because there's less properties.
Absolutely. And what people don't realize is how quick things change. Like literally in a week, things can flip, right?
Yeah, we just saw that from a negative perspective.
Exactly. Now imagine the war ends, petrol prices start going down, prices start to cool down in terms of living costs. Then you've got the RBA cutting rates once or twice. And all of a sudden, you're back in game straight away. And then you're competing instead of one other or none, you're competing with 5 to 10 other people, right? So yeah, it's just going back to that point. If you can do it, go for it now. Take advantage of the slow market. You can negotiate a bit more. You can potentially get, like you said before, like a discounted price on some good stock in good areas.
Yeah.
So yeah, go for it. I guess naturally I'm going to have to ask you because you buy a lot of properties for people, right? What's your take on people using buyer's agent versus doing it themselves? And where do you see the benefit? Now, obviously you're going to be an advocate for advocates. So, but from a neutral point of view, obviously there is a lot of value, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, if I can be completely neutral, I'd say that some buyer agents are very expensive.
yeah,
You're not getting a good service. That's a very expensive cost.
true.
So, and I'm a big believer that there's not a lot of good buyer agents out there as well. And I think I've even spoken to you about that before. The entry to become a buyer's agent, the barrier of entry is so low that anyone can really do it. And what makes a good buyer agent is someone that actually has experience in the space, but very few do. And because it's maybe before the budget, now we're in after budget, but before the budget, there was so much demand, especially in some of these other strong markets outside of Melbourne, that's where we work. There was such a demand for that service that you could get by without being good. So to be completely honest, a lot of buyer agents are a very expensive service that you won't get value from.
Yeah.
But a good buyer agent, and I had this chat with someone on the phone the other day, they were looking for some recommendations in a space I didn't work. And I said, but this is what a good buyer agent will do for you, because these are all the corners that the other ones cut. It's more access to property. That's why we niche it. And I'm not trying to make this about us. This is just to answer the question, but we niche ourselves in an area because we know we have really good relationships and connections. In the suburbs we work, we would know most of the agents. We would get a lot of stock off market. We have an advantage when it comes time to offers closing because we have the relationship. People often say, Eddie, like they go, oh, well, an agent doesn't want to work with you though, because you're a buyer's agent, like you're the other side. But they fail to understand that as a real estate agent, if there's a very qualified buyer, you know they're qualified, they're paying someone a fee. You don't have to answer any questions because someone else is doing all that work for you. That's the best buyer.
Absolutely.
Low maintenance buyer that they can come through and purchase. So greater reach to properties, a higher likelihood to purchase, minimizing the risk of overpaying, and then really strong due diligence on a property that a good buyer agent should be in a position to say, no, this actually isn't the best property for you. And I think that's where the biggest weakness in our industry is. There's advertisements out there, become a buyer agent, make 30 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand, blah, blah, blah per month working from home. But a lot of these are pressuring clients into purchasing. And I think the best buyer agents are ones that are actually in a position where they say, look, Eddie, I actually don't think that's the right property for you. Or unfortunately, it failed the due diligence on this part. Like it's your decision, but we wouldn't recommend it. And
absolutely.
Not many buyer agents, I don't feel, can actually say.
Oh, it's not a feeling. It's absolutely true. And I've worked with many buyers agents over the years, and like at the moment we only use probably one properly, which is Kev Tran Group. And they do.
He's really good.
He's really good. Okay. I love his process. He's not salesy. He's not just trying to get the next property sold. He really does what's right by the client. So, and it's hard to find good people, right? And then obviously and that's funny because we had that discussion probably 6 months ago when I was telling you, like, why haven't you thought about like doing national, right? And then you're like, I wanted to niche it down and just focus on being the best in my market. And then the budget happened and I remembered you because I think you've got an advantage now, right? People, a lot of big buyers agencies are having it really tough at the moment because all of a sudden the whole model is based on buying investment properties and buying 50 investment properties in a month. Yeah. All of a sudden that dried up.
Yeah, the turned off.
Exactly.
And I think when we spoke, I said my biggest concern with being a buyer agent, if I did investment, would be some of the royal commission.
Yeah.
Coming over and sort of restricting what you can and can't do. And so I thought, well, I prefer dealing with people. Like I love dealing with people. That's what I like doing. And I like the owner-occupier field because there's a lot more emotion involved in it. But then there was always that concern that at some point, I think the owner-occupier space, albeit at the time not as attractive financially, would be the better business model in case there was the risk of a change. I just didn't see it coming in this format.
Exactly.
But I thought it could happen somewhere else. And you're right, there's a big pivot. A lot of buyer agents now pivoting. And there's been some big buyer agencies that have closed down.
Oh, already?
Already.
Wow.
And I don't know if it was necessarily the budget. They might have been sort of the
cherry on the top.
Exactly. It might have been sort of the straw. But there's been a big shift, a big change. And I think it's going to expose a lot of agencies.
I think it's much needed as well.
I think it's much needed.
It's just become
saturated.
Wild west out there with buyers agents.
Yes. And and that's why I lean on the point that I say, like, I don't think most buyer agents are really at the standard that they should be.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, it's a much needed cleaning for the industry. And that always happens. That happened in the finance industry in 2018, right? And you had a lot of mortgage brokers that do Uber in the morning or hairdressing in the afternoon, and then they write loans on the side. And that's not the way to go. Sure. Like, you need to be fully committed. You need to know your stuff. You need to look after the people, your clients, and then you got to build a long-term business. It's not a quick, right? Like sell 10 properties and I'm out of here.
Well, the buyers at the moment as well that are purchasing are very sophisticated and they're not fee driven. And so when they come to someone's service, a lot of these buyer agents that might work part-time or might not have the same experience will win business based on fee.
Yeah.
But the buyers at the moment that are in the marketplace looking to transact aren't worried about how much a buyer agent costs them. They can actually see the investment of a good buyer agent. And so they're not just picking the lowest fee. They're actually picking who they think will be the cheapest.
Right service. Yeah,
Isn't necessarily the cheapest fee.
absolutely. And that's the best place to be, right? Because you don't need to justify your fee all the time. And people who see you, they know what you do. They're happy to pay you a fee and allow you to do your job without worrying about, "I'll give us a discount. What can you do for us?" Yeah, that's the type of people I love to work with, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They appreciate what you do and value what you do, and it's like, that's your money and do what you do best. So, all right, great. The Melbourne market has been really shitty for the last 5 years, 6 years.
Technical term, isn't
It is. That's the scientific term. So, do you see anything changing anytime soon? Obviously, government is the biggest factor here, right?
Yeah.
But is there any other factors that you see might help the market shift?
Well, it's a cycle thing. I mean, Melbourne's market, as you would know, can't always be going upwards, and we're out of cycle at the moment and have been. Other markets, Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide, have been in cycle, and so they've had a great run. And Melbourne just hasn't. I personally would have thought it would have kicked off this year if it maybe wasn't for some, external factors. Maybe we couldn't have predicted. But I do think it'll have its run. I mean, you look at Melbourne right now, and it definitely looks like the best value in terms of capital cities.
True.
The median Melbourne price is very misleading because our CBD or our metro, is so wide, and so you are pulling a lot of properties from out in the outer metro area in and factoring that into the means. I don't necessarily believe that
it's 850, I think, around the 850.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends where people really want to take the data from.
But that's a very good point, right? Because you're looking inner suburbs, there's nothing under $1 million plus, right?
So you work in our area, for example, in the east, which I would say is really desirable for owner-occupiers. You will struggle to buy a house in the outer east for less than 850, and let's call that, so that's the median. Well, in strong, I'd say blue chip pockets, it's impossible. And then you've moved further in and you sort of go even closer to the city, you're looking 1.5, 2. Then you get into really nice blue chip areas and you're comfortably over 2. So to be in good spots in blue chip areas, like, it is very expensive still. But I really think the main thing that'll increase our cycle at the moment really just comes down to consumer confidence. And I think we've been for so long miserable in Melbourne. And you talk to the local buyer and, why would you buy here? And it's sort of a bit of a joke. You speak to someone from Queensland moving back, it's like, why would you come here? It's so much better, so it's sort of a bit of a joke and laugh, but I think it's a confidence thing. It's just, where does that confidence come from? And I think as soon as we get, maybe it's even talking about rate cuts and this and that, it's just a couple little wins, buyers will return. Once the confidence returns, it's a real snowball effect, and your market can really transition. There's more to it than just that. But I do feel like our value is better than anywhere else at the moment. And I think once it starts to build some momentum, I think it'll go for a really good run.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, Melbourne's going through some tough time over the last few years, but Melbourne's going to stay around. Melbourne is one of the biggest economies in Australia. And it's just, we need some good policies. We need some good politicians, and we need good incentives. Obviously, it hasn't been the best over the last 5-6 years, but things change, right? And like you said, good value now. If you get yourself something, it could be one of your best investments or decisions you've done in your life. So,
I mean, our market's very catered towards like tenants. So for an investor's perspective, one of the biggest fears about, not that we do a lot of investment, but one of the biggest fears that investors have had coming to Melbourne for the last couple of years is your land tax is so high, your policies benefit the tenants so much, we feel like we don't have any rights, and the risk is too high and your yields are too low. And so there's been
and the weather is rubbish.
Exactly. There's been a lot of fear about that, but you just need a couple, like we said before, a couple policy changes, a couple things to change to improve, which I think naturally they will have to do if this budget sticks out, because I think there's going to be a real shortage in good quality rental stock.
True.
The system they're creating at the moment allows bad landlords to get away with being a bad landlord. And until we change it and incentivize good landlords into the space, that's all we're going to be dealing with.
Yeah. Dion, so what's your biggest tips for people buying if they're not using a buyer's agent, things that they need to be mindful about? some mistakes you've seen and things to avoid.
Yeah.
If you want to give us your best tips.
Talk less, like in terms of answers, ask more questions is normally the best thing to say. All mistakes buyers make really lead back to one thing, and that's just not asking enough questions. And that can come in the format of so many different parts of it. Being a real estate agent before being a buyer's agent, like you'd see so many, and this is what sort of made me want to transition into this space. So many buyers make so many mistakes by just not asking enough questions. And they don't understand that an agent can be super friendly, nice, good to chat to, but ultimately works for the vendor. And their job is to get their vendor the most amount of money. So not asking enough questions limits the amount of information you have. And if you're limiting the amount of information you have, you can't make as good a decision. And so if you want to make better educated decisions, if you want to minimize overpaying, if you want to understand how the field is actually set, if it's an auction or private sale, the best thing you can do is ask more questions about that information. And so we'd have buyers come through and I like to explain it like this. Average buyers or bad buyers only ask questions about the house. Decent buyers ask questions about the house and the vendor, and good buyers ask questions about the house, the vendor, and the competition. And you can work out really quick if you're a good buyer or not by how far into that chart you go. If you're only asking questions about the house, so what's the heating? What's the cooling? How old is it? Has it been re-stumped? They're great questions and questions you have to ask. But if that's where you start and stop, unfortunately, you're not a good buyer and your risk of overpaying is extremely high.
There you go.
If you find yourself at the next level where you're sort of going, so why are the vendors moving? What settlement are they after? What are their expectations? If you start to get that a little further, all of a sudden you've opened up more information for you to make better educated decisions. Okay, well, I'm not going to offer 820 because the agent just told me anything with an 8 they'd consider. So we don't have to go that high. So all of a sudden you start gathering more information. But then that's where 95% of buyers will finish. 5% of buyers, and we would rarely see this when I was an agent, would actually go, how many other buyers are out there? What's the competition? And I don't know if it comes down to buyers being scared that the agent's just going to lie or say something that's not true, but you can still work things out by asking good questions. So if there was an auction this weekend, how many bidders do you think you'd have? How many other building and pest inspections have happened? I mean, if buyers are booking building and pest inspections and they're paying money, well, they're obviously serious. And so if there's 5 building and pest inspections and your budget's only at the top of the range, is this one you should probably pursue? Probably not. And that's what makes a good buyer. And then you go, okay, well, what if the agent's lying to me and just saying there's 5 building and pest inspections because they're trying to build confidence? So, well, then you just have to ask that next level of questioning, which is where it sounds like we wouldn't buy the property if we're only at the top of the range. So then you can ask that question, can be a bit of an assumptive question, and lead them down that path. And if they're a good and ethical agent, they'll say at this stage, probably not.
Okay.
And there's some discernment that you have to use as well as a buyer, which is like, hey, there's 5 building and pest inspections, probably not going to, be for us if we don't have a really strong budget.
100%.
So really the core of all issues that buyers make can come from many different areas, just simply not asking enough questions. Negotiations, property related, no matter what it is, you just have to ask more questions.
What's some of these questions?
Yeah. Well, house related, I mean, they're probably the most straightforward, simple questions, and they're things that buyers would be doing. So go through, ask questions about the property, make sure you're understanding what you are buying, what's included, what's not. So that's pretty straightforward. Questions about the vendor are understanding what's driving them, because you're gathering information before you enter into a negotiation. So what is going to position me? That's always what a good negotiator is looking for, is positioning. I think there's this misconception, like I think we see so many things in Hollywood or TV shows about, and I've made this joke a lot about like people ramming offers down the phone, like take it or leave it, blah, blah, blah. That's just not the reality of what we work in. And the best negotiators are those that can position themselves really well and get an advantage of the process. And so you can position yourself better. So what's the vendor's circumstances? Why are they selling? Oh, they're looking for a lifestyle change. Oh, have they purchased? You might not always get that answer, but yeah, they've purchased. Great. Well, they're very motivated. Yeah, they're going to want a shorter settlement. We can't tell you the vendor's circumstances. Okay, well, what settlement are they after? 30 days, 60 days. Well, if it's a shorter settlement, they're obviously motivated. Go look if there's a fridge. Go look if there's a dishwasher. If there's not, and the property's vacant, they've gone somewhere, or the property's vacant, shorter settlement will help. The fridge is there, open it up, see if there's milk in it. I know that sounds stupid, but if there's no milk,
mate, there you go.
There you go. So, and I know it sounds weird.
Unless they're lactose intolerant, man.
Go look for some.
You build the your whole argument on milk.
But if you're walking into the wardrobes, there's no clothes.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never thought about it, right?
You got to get a feel. So a shorter settlement's going to drive.
Yeah, 100%. So that means they're ready to sell.
So you're in the back foot, you're making an offer, and you're putting forward a long settlement, and they're driven by a short settlement, and you're in competition. Well, you've shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
Or there's no competition, and you get technical, and you go, okay, well, price isn't the only factor that'll buy this property, potentially offering a higher settlement to begin with, because I know that doesn't suit them. And I know I'm the only buyer because I've asked competition questions, and I'll get to that in a second. I know I'm the only buyer, so I know they want 30 days. I'm going to offer them 120.
Yeah.
We do this a lot. We're going to offer them 120, and we're going to offer them a 5% deposit, and we're going to offer them a low price. So when we get closer in numbers, say we're 20 grand apart,
You negotiate.
then we pull our settlement down to what we could have always done anyway, and we increase our deposit to something we could have always done anyway because we know the vendor's circumstances. Then we close the gap, and that's the little things that can get you.
That's the art of negotiation, ladies and gentlemen.
But it's all position.
Absolutely, because it feels like you're giving something back, but in reality, you're not. You're giving something you were willing to give from the
You've
first.
always had it. You just held it back. Too many buyers get in too quick, too soon.
They put all their 100. They play all their cards on the first hand, and
But you can only get that technical and know you're the only buyer if you ask them competition.
and if you're not emotional, right?
Yeah.
That's where the issue happens. When people are emotional, they want the house, so they put everything. It's like to impress.
Yeah.
And it ends up working against them.
We have to have, they tell the agent these things. We have to have, we love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, all these things, and the agents are going great, but you're very much
They're on the hook. Yeah.
on the hook. Like, we can push you for more. So that's where asking and then competition questions are questions to identify how many buyers have been through. You can also work out a lot of the competition stuff by going to opens yourself. If you go to the first open, there's no other buyers there. That's a really good indication that there's not a lot of interest. And then you can ask the agent, like, how many other buyers have been through the property? Has anyone requested a Section 32? Bit of a weak question, because a lot of people ask for Section 32s even when they don't have interest. But, how many repeat inspections? How many offers? You can ask all these questions. And competition questions are leading you to prepare yourself for a private sale or an auction. It's just different ways to look at it. For a private sale, you're positioning. For an auction, you're trying to gather as much information and put a plan in place for the day. If you're going to bid above the top of the range, if you're going to hold back and not bid at all. And so these questions are preparing you for the process.
There you go. That's really, really helpful, man. So how do you know if an agent is good or playing games? Is there any like a lie test? You can lie detector.
There's a lie detector, and it's asking more questions. And that's what I mean. Like, it all comes back to asking the right questions at the right time. And so with a private sale, you lose the transparency. People always say, like, oh, I prefer private sale because auction things sell for more than they're worth. It's like, no, they don't. They just sell for more than the quote. And a quote and what a property's worth are two different things. But buyers will say they prefer private sale because it feels like it's easier, but it's a lot harder. You can go wrong in a private sale so easily. At an auction, it's very hard to go. Yes, there's things you can do to sharpen your chances of buying for a better price. But if you see someone bid 5,000, probably not going to bid 50. But there's so many people that will overpay by 50 grand because they don't ask the right questions. And so to answer the question of how do you work out if an agent's being honest or not, you just have to ask questions to their answers. And so Michael and I, who works with me, working on a deal at the moment for a client. The agents are sort of being very cagey with where other offers are at. And so we just have to ask the agent so many questions so we can give our clients good advice. And so there are assumptive questions. So whereabouts the other offers are, I can't disclose that. But they're within the range. Yes, they're within the range, but it sounds like they're towards the bottom. Oh, I can't tell you. Okay, but if we offered 810, are we in the running or not? No. Okay, so your offers are at 830. Look, the offers are towards the middle of the range. Okay, so it's 8 to 880. So you're just asking all these questions. Okay, but we wouldn't buy it at 830. Will you be in the running? Okay. So it's like, you just got to keep question. Does the offer you have at the moment, has it put the property on the market? No, it hasn't. Okay, well, there's sort of an elusive offer that hasn't put the property on the market. Like, do I feel what they're saying is correct? I mean, the other thing is, I think agents in a way get a bad rep for using offers in a negotiation. So
That do not exist sometimes.
well, sometimes they don't, or what is more often is they're very bad offers.
Mhm.
But the job of an agent is to make it a competitive environment.
Of course.
So when I was an agent, if we had a property, we had a good buy, but we didn't really have that competitive environment, and we knew there was someone else out there that, of course, if the property's worth 800, it's very easy to go get an offer of 700.
Yeah.
Say to a buyer, would you make an offer at the right price? Oh, maybe it's 700. Would you put that towards our vendor? Sure. Of course they would. It's only grand under what it's probably worth. But so you'd get something from someone, then you'd call your best buyer and you'd say to them, hey, we just received an offer on the property. We're going to present it to our vendor tonight. I just want to know if you're in or out.
100%.
And so that
Pressure.
it puts pressure on the buyer, fear of loss. And as you said even earlier, like it makes them emotional and people don't think as clearly. And so instead of a buyer asking, okay, is the property on the market? Is the vendor prepared to accept that offer?
But I don't think people know they can ask these questions.
They're worried that they're worried
They're going to be knocked back.
they're going to be knocked
They're not going to get the right
embarrassed.
answer. Exactly.
They're like, it's weird that we get so funny about asking questions.
When you're making the biggest purchase of your life.
Of your life. And I say to clients sometimes, like I ask so many questions. I sometimes ask the same question like 3 or 4 times because I'm just not 100% happy with the answer I've got. Sometimes it's a little bit like cagey and you're like, no, I know I've asked it. I just want to be 100% sure. This is what you're saying. Like you have the right to ask as many questions as you would like.
And they need to answer.
And they need to answer.
That's the job.
Well, that's their job. I mean, they don't have to.
Yeah.
They're not doing the right thing by you as a client. And you'll find that if you ask questions, most agents are actually pretty receptive to answering.
True.
And so that example where you write an offer up at 700 and your buyer's at 800, you're completely honest. You've received an offer. You're going to present it to your vendor, but the buyer doesn't know that it's a weak offer and the vendor's obviously going to say no. But you create this environment. And if that buyer, your good buyer, does not ask you some simple questions, which will take them 3 minutes, they go, oh, they've got an offer. I think it's worth 800. We'd be safe making an offer at 790.
Yeah.
And bang, $90,000 window.
Exactly.
And that's the risk you face in a private sale because your questions have to be so direct and you have to be smart to understand the gaps in that process. Whereas an auction, someone bids 700,000, you're probably not going to bid 790.
Yeah. We can go on for a couple of hours, right? But we'll try and wrap it up in the next 10, 15 minutes. What's your biggest tips on auction?
Yeah.
If someone's obviously doing it themselves, all right, what do you think people should be aware about? Things to do, things not to do?
Well, it's one of these things is where can we start and where can we stop with this? I'll give some really basic principles leading into an auction and then some really practical stuff that maybe people don't talk about, also bidding at an auction. Let's start with the bidding before the auction. Find a place that you feel comfortable standing. You buy an auction 2 ways, having more money, and anyone can do that.
Yeah.
Or appearing to have more money.
Okay.
So like you would have clients that would say like, hey, we're going to bid this weekend. The property, you'd know they're pre-approved up to, let's call it $1 million, but we're going to bid up to 900. Are you comfortable to do that? And it's like, they have more money, right? They do have more, but they choose to not pay more. And the better example is that every private sale you go to, not everyone just offers their budget. It's not how it works. So people are prepared to go to auctions with budgets and not go over it. So you have to understand you can win an auction while someone has more money, but you appear to have more money, that you shake their confidence and they don't continue to bid, or they decide to cap it at their budget, which is also the mindset you should have. I want to make sure that no one goes over their budget. So you win an auction by having more money or appearing to have more money by stopping people from bidding further. And so how comfortable and confident you look is a big factor on that. And so I always say to people that are bidding themselves, stand where you feel comfortable. I'm naturally someone who leans against things. Okay.
A tree or a...
Yeah, I just lean. I'm just a leaner. I've stayed in the house too long. I lean. Maybe it's my bad posture. So for me, something that feels comfortable when I was bidding earlier on, like in the process for clients, not so much nowadays, but when I used to be a bit more nervous bidding for clients, I'd lean against a tree, lean against a car. I'd stand on a gutter because it just felt comfortable having some, like I felt more comfortable.
Yeah.
If it's a hot day, stand in the shade. If it's raining, stand where it's drying. Like, I know these sound like super
No, but it affects your psyche, right?
but feel comfortable.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Don't invite your whole family. Don't put more pressure on yourself. And that'll lead into as well, having actual conversations before an auction about where you're prepared to go. Buyers struggle at valuing property because they value it at prices they would like to pay, not at prices that it most likely will go to. And so when they set budgets for themselves at auction, they'll set it at a price that's
unrealistic.
A great price.
Yeah.
We can buy it for 900. Let's set our budget there. And so you have to have a real hard, honest chat while you're not emotional during the week of the auction. Like, if it went to 950, are we in or not?
Yeah,
like, are we
exactly.
Still actually going to be bidding? Because if you're setting your budget, step one to setting a strategy, and if you don't set it right, then your strategy is going to shift, and then your strategy won't be as effective. And so having a real hard on chat during the week on, this is our budget. And these are sort of things you can bid really well, but not have done the foundations.
Yeah.
Like, you can have a great strategy, but you haven't set your budget correctly, and you look uneasy and unconfident of the auction. It doesn't matter how good your strategy is, you'll probably still lose. So you have to get the foundations and basics right. Set a budget. That's also why I say don't bring your family, because you think you're emotional. Your parents going to an auction are so much more emotional. Like, it's on my side, I see the parents of like the underbidder, and I'm like, oh, like, great, we're going to have to pay more because the parents get suckered in. They want their kids to buy. They invite your family unless they're topping up money. 100%. They have to pay back for it. And I know it's not always the case. Stand by yourself or have someone bid for you if you're not confident enough to do it as well. So, like my dad, for example, he bought a lot of property. He'd bid on behalf of a lot of his friends. It was a great thing that they could do. He didn't do it for any money. Maybe they slipped him a bottle of red wine. But like, if you know someone like that has bought a lot of real estate, hey, could you bid for me? Like, I just don't feel confident enough to do it myself.
Yeah.
Because when the pressure's on, that's when it really matters. Not on a Wednesday leading up to an auction thinking, yeah, I can do this. No, it's when the bell's rung. It's when the auctioneer's out there.
There's 20, 30 people standing around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eyes on you.
Yeah, eyes on you. I will make this like more, I'll get into some sort of more strategy-based things too. So prepping yourself, making sure you buy yourself and get yourself set right is so important. When it leads into the auction itself, there's little things that you can do. Appearing to be more confident is really important. So bidding in $1,000 increments is something I will never do for clients, okay? You don't hire me to try win by $1,000. I would relate this, if a client asked me to do it, I'd say, if you give someone $1, does that make them rich? The answer is no. But if you give someone enough dollars, at some point, they become rich. So yes, you can win by paying $1,000 more than someone, but at what expense? At what point would they have stopped earlier on in the process? So yes, if you have a limitless budget and you just keep going one, you will win. But you probably could have stopped them earlier.
If you did 10 or 5.
10, yeah. Which feels more expensive, but it's the cheaper long-term option. And I've cold auctions. So I used to be an auctioneer. I've bid at auctions. I've been an agent in the crowd. I've watched auctions, been to so many auctions.
You've seen it from all angles.
I've seen so many.
And you've been a buyer yourself, right?
Yeah. So I've seen buyers pay more than they needed to by just bidding in $1,000 increments because they think they're paying less.
100%.
Knock your competition out and you don't look confident if you're bidding once. Bidding increments are really important. You need to work out a bidding pattern. That's what's really important. And people don't understand what a bidding pattern is. Well, if your budget's $1 million, it's going in $5,000 increments. Don't bid to $995,000 because the next bid's $1 million.
Yeah.
And you haven't given yourself 100% of your budget to buy the property. You've given yourself 99.5%. You haven't given yourself the best chance. So you have to understand, and this is why when the pressure's on, you need someone with a clear mind to go, well, I'm actually off pattern right now.
What's coming next?
What's coming next? Okay, well, I might need a bid of $10,000 increments to get myself to 980. So they bid 5, or if they bid 10, it goes to 990. Great, I can bid 10 again, I'm at $1 million. Or they bid 5, they fall into the trap I wanted, and I can get back to 990. They go 995, and I go $1 million. Never set your budget on a round number. So many buyers do. So set your budget 10, 15 over.
Why is that?
They just do.
Yeah, okay.
They don't have an actual hard, honest conversation during the week, and they say, oh, I budget 900. Then they get to around that. So then I tell clients, let's counter the bias. It'll give themselves 5 over. So let's go 10, 15 over.
There you go.
Or so many auctions filed with 10 grand.
Yeah.
Because buyers said.
And it's the homework, I guess, the buyers do before the auction, right? Like knowing your numbers. I guess if you don't want to know anything else, you need to know your numbers.
Absolutely.
And that's something we work with our clients, like knowing what the maximum is. And that is there in case it's the perfect property. Like, I want that property. I'm ready to go there.
I can't tell you how many clients we've had or have come to us, have missed out on properties and tell us they would have paid that price if they had the chance again, but they weren't confident on their numbers. And so again, if you're not confident on your numbers, you could cost yourself your dream property.
Exactly. You're running blind.
You're running blind.
And it could be like $20,000 difference.
Yeah.
In the scheme of things, that's nothing, right?
Yeah. But if
You're doing it
in $5,000 increments,
that's a lot.
that's a lot. That's
Exactly.
more extra bits you have a chance to put in.
100%.
So you have to be really sure.
And if you're doing, let's say, 20% deposit, that 20K extra is costing you $4,000 out of pocket.
Yeah.
And a $16,000 extra loan, right? Which is nothing to buy your
dream
family home. Yeah, exactly, man. All right. Last question. Okay.
You want
I have recently went through selling a property. Okay. And choosing the agent was really like the trickiest thing ever.
yeah.
Okay. Because it's like, how do you know? Like they could tell you anything before the auction and it just got to go off that gut feeling. But still, it's not like, how do you know if an agent is good or bad? Like, for example, one of the agents, I had three. I called three. Three of them came, presented. One of them I liked, and that's the one I used because he was just casual. Okay, like we could have a chat. He understands things. The other guy who knew his stuff, but he put me through an hour and a half presentation. And I was like, mate, look, I think you're doing great, but last time I've sat in an hour and a half presentation, I was in school probably. Seriously, just you bored the hell out of me. Just don't worry about it. So, and then the third one was just much higher fees. And then it's like, okay, what do you choose? How do you know if an agent is suitable for you? And that's if you're selling. So we always talk about the buying part, but if you're selling, what's your tips? And
I mean, I think selecting an agent, I was thinking about this the other day. One of the best things you can do is actually go through a couple open homes first and see the experience you get as a buyer from them, because ultimately they're going to be selling on your doorstep. So you want to know how well they're working the buyers of other properties they're selling, because how they treat you as a buyer is how they'll treat the buyer of your property. And so if you're not getting the phone call back on Monday, Tuesday, like you really want that agent working hard. And I think that's what makes a really good agent, is someone that's a really strong communicator with their buyers. And there were a lot of properties we go through, we never get a phone call back. Or you see like a result happen and you're not aware, like it's like bad communication. And then you deal with some really good operators that are just like, hey, I know you bought from 6 months ago. They did they buy? They're all over everything. And like, I've got this coming up, I've got that. This has had a price reduction, and they're really working their buyers. And you're like, oh, you're very good. Like, I know you're all working very hard for your client. And so I think the best thing you can do if you're looking to sell a property is go through a couple open homes of agents you're considering using. The experience you get is experience that your buyers will get. And if you like that experience, you're going to like selling them. But then I'd say, secondly as well, trusting the agent you use is very important. Obviously, in real estate, don't have sort of the best reputation. I'm no different in what the field I'm in. So trusting who you use is so important. Getting along with them is so important. And if you feel that you have you make a good team together, that's important, because if they're telling you that we're struggling, we need a price reduction, it's not going well, that news comes better from someone that you trust and you like, rather than someone that you feel a little bit iffy about. And you're like, you're really doing the best thing for me. So even if you think there's like, this person is the best agent, if you're not getting a good feel, they're not calling you back at your opens and all these little things like that, are they going to get you the best price?
True.
Maybe not.
And that's the issue when you commit. It's so hard to get out of that commitment.
You sign an exclusive authority.
And you've got 90 days or 180 days, whatever you've signed, you can't do anything.
You can't. And then any buyer that they potentially, and this is a little trap you can fall into, is that if they send out an email blast or any communication during that 90-day period to any buyer that then might come through your open later on, you might have to pay double commission. If they can prove the buyer had been notified about your property through their network or emails or text. It doesn't just have to be an open for inspection, but if they can say, oh, we emailed that buyer, they might have the right to pursue their commission.
And you have to let them know who the buyer is.
They can find out themselves really anyway. But when it settles, that'll become public knowledge. They can do a title search and they can find out even if you don't want to tell them.
Okay. There you go.
Not that that's too common like that.
Yeah, but it's good to know.
It's good to know.
Absolutely.
I think if you're considering changing agents, it's good to know the potential.
I had like clients with really bad experiences with agents where they needed the property sold in a certain time because they needed to buy something else. And then the agent went overseas.
Yeah.
And no notifications, no communication.
Yeah.
And they missed like 8 weeks of the campaign.
Wow.
And that delayed everything else because they had a deadline to purchase something else. And it can be really messy.
It can be costly.
So it's one of the big decisions, choosing your wife and your agent.
Yeah. I've chosen my wife very well. So
Good.
hopefully when it comes to choosing an agent, I can do well. But I think as well, like, just don't go with the agent who promises the price. Like,
Yeah.
I know for a fact on my side that we're the ones that actually determine what a property is worth. Just because an agent tells me it's worth $1 million doesn't mean I'm going to pay it. And so sellers need to get into the mindset of just because they've come in and promised me this price doesn't mean it's actually worth that. Because the buyers are the ones that will determine the price.
Yes.
The agent just has to deliver the best process to build as much competition. And how do you do that? You have a lot of communication with buyers.
Yeah.
You work your buyers really well and you create that environment. The result will take care of itself.
I think what people don't realize how much psychological is buying and selling properties, and just the seeds that agents plant in you without you realizing, and how that could influence the results later on.
Yeah.
So that's why being emotional does not help, because you're pretty much off guard psychologically, and you could be manipulated and taken whichever way they want you to go. So using someone, if you're honest to yourself, knowing, look, this is not my field. I don't understand it. I'm probably going to mess it up. So I need help here. I think you're paying a fee, but you could end up saving yourself a lot more.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, we were just joking before, but I could talk all day about this, but maybe I'll finish on this point when it comes to agents. I think one of the best ways to work out who's good as well, and I say this to clients that try and negotiate our fee, the best way to work out if someone is a good negotiator or not is by asking them to reduce their fee. And you'll work out how good of a negotiator they are straight away. If they drop their fee, if they're representing you, they're going to drop your price straight away to cater a buyer. If they stand firm and try and navigate it and work that through, then you know they're a much better negotiator. And so I say to clients for myself, like, if I'm out here dropping my fee to win your business, then as soon as it comes time to the point of the stick, I'm just going to increase when we might not have to. So you're ultimately hiring a negotiator. Why not try it out first and ask them for a fee discount? What's the best fee you could do? Could you sharpen the fee? And their response, I think, will tell you all you need to know as well.
There you go. Very good point. Well, yeah, we could go on for a few more hours.
Might have to come back.
But we'll probably, do part 2 later on. Yeah. So thanks for your time, man.
Sure. Thanks for having me on.
There's a lot of great examples and knowledge that you've shared. So I think it's really valuable for anyone in the process. So thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.
And thank you for anyone listening. Please reach out if you have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe and follow and leave us some good 5-star reviews if possible. Until next time, thank you very much. Take care and see you. Bye-bye.
Disclaimer. The information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into account your personal circumstances. Head to the show notes if you want to book a free call to discuss your personal situation.